description about the character of Jada Bharata and also about his previous life as King Bharat, who was actually the emperor of the entire earth, and then how he ended up taking birth in the body of a deer after having been the king of the entire earth. So he took, due to some specific circumstances, he was having to take birth in that species of life according to the law of nature and also Bhagavan's divine plan for teaching and instructing all of mankind through this occurrence. And then later on he was again born after that lifetime in the physical body of a deer. Then he was born again among human beings as Jada Bharata. And this is the 11th chapter. In the 10th chapter, there was description of this how Maharaj Rahugana, who was a king himself too, and that in that birth, Jada Bharata, he was just born in a Brahmin family, but he was having an inner kind of like perspective to this reality and its temporary nature, so he didn't really want to like behave as a Brahman or anything else. He was just wanting to perfect his existence in that lifetime, being completely withdrawn from the society and just absorbed in his own meditation and in perfecting his spiritual development, not to again fall in any trap of Maya in that specific lifetime. And then he ended up meeting that king, Rahugana, and Rahugana was chastising him in the forest path for making his passing through the forest on his gorgeous palanquin carried by different persons, and Jada Bharata among themselves. And then because of Jada Bharata, then the pathway was a little bit crooked because he was so merciful and compassionate towards the other living beings on the path, the ants that he did not want to step on. And that's why he was chastised by King Rahugana, and then the king was chastising him, thinking that he's an ordinary fool and somehow unqualified to function as his palanquin carrier. But then it was revealed that Jada Bharata actually was a transcendentally realized soul, and even had been a king in the same dynasty as King Rahugana was born and functioning as king. So in the previous life, Jada Bharata had himself been a king, and he had been in the same dynasty where this King Rahugana was born and was king. So, and he began to then instruct King Rahugana. So there is a shloka here, text 16. Na yavad etan mamam atmalingam sangsarattapa vapanam janasyam yachchala maya ragalobham vairanu mamatang vidhatte. Na. You can repeat after me. Na. It's a Sanskrit. Not. Yavat. As long as. Etat. This. Manaha. Mind. Atmalingam. Existing as the false designation of the soul. Sangsaratapa. Of the miseries of this material world. Avapanam. The growing ground. Janasya. Of the living being. Yat. Which. Shoka. Of lamentation. Moha. Of illusion. Amaya. Of disease. Raga. Of attachment. lobha, of greed, vaira, of enmity, anubandham, the consequence, mamatam, the sense of ownership, vidhate, gives. Translation: the soul's designation, the mind, is the cause of all tribulations in the material world. As long as this fact is unknown to the conditioned living entity, he has to accept the miserable condition of the material body and wander within this universe in different positions. Because the mind is affected by disease, lamentation, illusion, attachment, greed, and enmity, it creates bondage and a false sense of intimacy within this material world. So we can read the purport. The mind is the cause of both material bondage and liberation. The impure mind thinks, I am this body. The pure mind knows that he is not the material body. Therefore, the mind is considered to be the root of all material designations. Until the living entity is aloof from the association and contaminations of this material world, the mind will be absorbed in such material things as birth, death, disease, illusion, attachment, greed, and enmity. In this way, the living entity is conditioned and he suffers material miseries. So there's a lot of emphasis here on helping us to divide soul and the mind. That actually, because we are still identifying with the mind, that's why we become conditioned, and we are following the dictations of the mind instead of following Guru and Krishna. So like it's stated in must be in Narada Pancharatra, Sarvapadhi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktiruchyate. By becoming completely freed from all the upadhis, means designations, external designations that we have, sarva upadhi. Sarvapadhi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam, one will become completely purified, tatprapena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam, by serving Rishikesh, means Krishna, the Lord of all senses, with one's Rishikas, means with one's senses and mind, by serving Krishna. Rishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchyate. This is the definition of bhakti, devotion. So without being freed from these designations that are stored up in our mind, that I am this body, I am of this nationality, or anything else that's connected to our physical body and mind. So then by becoming completely freed from those, then actually that pure bhakti will manifest. Otherwise it will be covered over by the influence of Mahamaya, the influence of external material nature, external energy of Krishna. So there's pure mind also, and pure mind knows that he is not the material body, and that's the way to become freed from all suffering. It's like Prabhupada says that in this way the living entity is conditioned through the mind absorbing in material things like birth of ourselves or somebody else, death, somebody else, or death, disease, illusion, attachment, greed, enmity. So, and that's how we suffer till we become freed from these when we can withdraw our attention from these things and just focus on spirituality. So text 17, partritvyammenam tad adabhra viryam upakshayad yedhitam apramattah gurur haresh charanopasanastra jahivyalikam svayam atmamosham. This translation by Srila Prabhupada. This uncontrolled mind is the greatest enemy of the living entity. If one neglects it or gives it a chance, it will grow more and more powerful and will become victorious. Although it is not factual, it is very strong. It covers the constitutional position of the soul. O King, please try to conquer this mind by the weapon of service to the lotus feet of the spiritual master and of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Do this with great care. Purport. There is one easy weapon with which the mind can be conquered: neglect. The mind is always telling us to do this or that. Therefore, we should be very expert in disobeying the mind's orders. Gradually, the mind should be trained to obey the orders of the soul. It is not that one should obey the orders of the mind. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say that to control the mind, one should beat it with one's shoes. Many times, just after awakening, and again after going to sleep, beating the mind up with a shoe. In this way, one can control the mind. This is the instruction of all the Shastras. If one does not do so, one is doomed to follow the dictations of the mind. Another bona fide process is to abide strictly by the orders of the spiritual master and engage in the Lord's service. Then the mind will be automatically controlled. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has instructed Srila Rupa Goswami, Brahmanda Brahmitakona Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadipaya Bhakti Lata Bij. When one receives the seed of devotional service by the mercy of the Guru and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one's real life begins. If one abides by the orders of the spiritual master, by the grace of Krishna, he is freed from the service to the mind. This is actually where the 5th canto, 11th chapter of Bhagavatam is ending. So these instructions of Jad Bharat are like culminating in enlightening the king, about the illusory nature of our mind. In the previous text, he stated like this in the 15th verse. He stated, my dear King Rahugana, as long as the conditioned soul accepts the material body and is not freed from the contamination of material enjoyment, and as long as he does not conquer his 6 enemies and come to the platform of self-realization by awakening his spiritual knowledge, he has to wander among different places and different species of life in this material world. So, and the 6 enemies, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Mada, Moha, Matsarya, and these are in English.
Lust, anger, envy, pride, illusion.
Yes, right. So we have to conquer these enemies and also become freed from the identification with the mind and body. So that's why we have to accept specific things like our sadhana, waking up early, chanting Maha mantra, and if you have been initiated, you have other mantras too, and Gayatri and all this. Yes?
I wanted to mention fixed number around
fixed number, yes, yes. And following all these other instructions that are stated by in Shastra and also by Guru himself or Guru herself. So, like we have here, Shyamaran Didi, so you're all very fortunate you can get direct instructions from her in all kinds of situations. If you have any questions or anything like that, you can just go directly to the source and inquire from her. She's very compassionate and wise, so highly learned. So we have this kind of blessing here by Srila Prabhupada's and Srila Gurudev's mercy. Because she has been taking shelter of both of them, and in a very glorious way she surrendered to both of them. And that's why she's so highly qualified and exemplary for all of us to follow her example. Actually, there is also in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, there's also one verse regarding this, how we are that what is real knowledge, and they state, Krishna says, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam, means to understand the suffering that's connected with birth, death, old age, and disease. So one who understands these things to be misery, then one has real knowledge. But there's many other items too, but simply because here Srila Prabhupada was mentioning in the purport about this, how we are absorbed in these material things: birth, death, disease, illusion, attachment, greed, enmity. So, and how this happens, it happens through our mind. But when we are like in good association, sadhu sangha, and we are in line with the instructions of Shastra, Guru Sadhu and Shastra, so then we can more easily become freed from this material atmosphere and absorb, instead of these material miseries, we can actually focus on spiritual reality. Spiritual nature, means our soul. We understand the nature of our soul and the nature of Bhagavan through practicing Bhakti Yoga. And in this way, our consciousness becomes purified, and through this purified state of consciousness, then we can begin to more and more easily and clearly understand the spiritual nature, spiritual reality, like these pastimes of Krishna, Nam, Rupa, Guna, and Leela. All one stage by stage. So it all takes place and is revealed in a purified consciousness of a sadhaka. Without doing spiritual practice, our consciousness cannot get purified. It remains covered over by three modes of material nature. Tamagun means ignorance, Rajagun means passion, mode of passion, and Sattvagun, the mode of goodness. So we have to go beyond all these gradually, step by step. But first, like establishing a sattvic lifestyle, which is based on the mode of goodness, and from that mode of goodness we can aspire to get higher, closer to Suddha Sattva, which is like Shiva has defined in Bhagavatam, Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shabditam, that this state of realizing God is called Vasudeva Sattva. That's why, because Krishna's father, Vasudeva, he was in that state of consciousness when Krishna appeared in this world. So that's why it's called Vasudeva Sattva. Vasudeva Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shabditam. So, and in chapter 12, there's again this conversation between Maharaj Rahugana and Jad Bharata is going on. So we can read a little bit from there too. But this, Srila Prabhupada has also emphasized here this specific instruction given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Srila Rupa Goswami. That's given at the point when Srila Rupa Goswami left his ministerial post. You say like that in English? He was in the he was a minister in the Mughal kingdom of Nawab Hussain Shah in Ramakeli. This is in West Bengal of India. And also Sanatan Goswami, they were both there, Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. And they had accepted the designation, Muslim designation, Sakara Mallika and Dabir Khas. And after that, they escaped from there by Krishna's mercy. A very wonderful description is there in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita of how they left their service there of Nawab Hussain Shah, because he wanted to have these most brilliant brothers there to support in ruling his country. And because he wanted just to go fight somewhere, wars and all that. And during that time, Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami were taking care of all the affairs of the entire country, the entire area, everything that had to be done. They were perfect in doing everything. But then when they had darshan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu there, who came to that region, so then it immediately just gave up everything there, and they went. First of all, Rupa Goswami, where this instruction regarding, which is mentioned by Srila Prabhupada here, Pramanda Pramitakona Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadepaya Bhakti Lata Beach. This is given to Srila Rupa Goswami in Prayag, which is like when Mughals were ruling India, it was known by the name Allahabad. But in modern day India, they are coming back to their real history, back to their real culture. So they are renaming many places in India. Like now, Prayag, which was known in between during Mughal rule, it was called Allahabad. So now they have renamed it again. It's called Prayagraj. That's the new name for Allahabad. And that's where in Prayag, it's a very ancient holy city, known since Vedic times, thousands of years before already. So that's where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met Srila Rupa Goswami, and he was instructing him there about this. And the more directly, this is kind of like he's applying it in context of this verse and translating it accordingly. But actually it means that when a fortunate soul, when wandering through the Brahmanda, means throughout the universe, then during that time when somebody really becomes fortunate, a spirit soul, an individual soul, Jivatma who becomes extremely fortunate, he will obtain, by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, the Bhakti Lata Bija, that means the seed of devotional service, the seed of the creeper of devotional service. And definitely we'd become freed from the service to the mind and from all the influence of Mahamaya by like Srila Prabhupada says, abiding the orders of the spiritual master and obtaining the grace of Krishna, so we can obtain the freedom from service to mind and serving instead Krishna. So Yeah, so in the chapter 12, there's conversation between Maharaj Rahugana and Jada Bharata. We can just read the introduction to that one here. Because Maharaj Rahugana was still doubtful about his enlightenment, he asked the Brahmana Jada Bharata to repeat his instructions and clarify ideas he could not understand. In this chapter, Maharaj Rahugana offers his respectful obeisances to Jada Bharata, who was concealing his real position. The king could understand by his speech how exalted and advanced he was in spiritual knowledge. He very much regretted his offense against him. Maharaj Rahugana, because he was chastising Jada Bharat to be somehow unqualified. So he was regretting his offense against him. Maharaj Rahugana was bitten by the serpent of ignorance, but was cured by the nectarian words of Jada Bharata. Later, because he was doubtful about the subjects discussed, he made further inquiries, one question after another. First, he wanted to be released from the offense he had committed at the lotus feet of Jada Bharata. Maharaj Rahugana was somewhat unhappy at not being able to grasp Jada Bharata's instructions, which were full of meaning that could not be understood by a materialistic person. Therefore, Jada Bharata repeated his instructions more clearly. He said that on the surface of the globe, all living entities, moving and unmoving, were but transformations of the earth in different ways. The king was very proud of his king's body, but that body was simply another transformation of the earth. Out of his false prestige, the king was misbehaving toward the palanquin carrier as a master toward a servant, and he was actually very unkind to other living entities. Consequently, King Rahugana was unfit to give protection to the citizens, and because he was ignorant, he was unfit to be counted among advanced philosophers. Everything in the material world is but a transformation of the earth, although things have different names according to their transformations. Actually, the varieties are one and the same, and ultimately, all these varieties are vanquished into atoms. Nothing is permanent in this material world. The variety of things and their distinctions are simply mental concoctions. The absolute truth is beyond illusion and is manifest in three features: impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ultimate realization of the absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, called Vasudeva by his devotees. Unless one is blessed with the dust from the feet of pure devotee on his head, one cannot possibly become a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So devotees are so important. Real Vaishnava shelter. That's the way we can only become a devotee of Krishna. Jada Bharata also told about his own previous birth and informed the king that by the grace of the Lord, he still remembered all the incidents of his past life. Due to the activities of his past life, Jada Bharata was being very cautious and was therefore assuming the characteristics of a deaf and dumb man to avoid mingling with the material world. Association with the material modes of nature is very powerful. The bad association of materialistic men can be avoided only in the association of devotees. In the association of devotees, one is given an opportunity to render devotional service in 9 different ways. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma, Nivedanam. In this way, in the association of devotees, one can pass over material association, cross over the ocean of nations, and return home back to Godhead. Actually, 9 different ways means Shravanam, hearing, right. Kirtanam, chanting. Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, prayers. Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. Absolutely, absolutely. So Srila Prabhupada is very much emphasizing here the association of devotees, like stated in that verse which we all know. I should know. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastrikoi, Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhihoi. By even one moment's association with the sadhu, with the Vaishnava, one can be freed from, obtain actually perfection. So Rahugana is stating here, Rahugana Uvacha, Namo Namah Karana Vigrahaya Svarupatuchi Krita Vigrahaya Namavav Dhuta Dvijabandhulinga Nigudha Nityanu Bhavaya Tubhyam. Translation, King Rahugana said, O most exalted personality, you are not different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By the influence of your true self, all kinds of contradiction in the Shastras have been removed. In the dress of a friend of a Brahmana, you are hiding your transcendental, blissful position. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport. From the Brahma Samhita, we understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes. Sarvakarana Karanam. Rishabhadev was the direct incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The cause of all causes. His son, Bharat Maharaj, who was now acting as the Brahmana Jad Bharata, had received his body from the cause of all causes. Therefore, he is addressed as Karana Vigrahaya. So, like it's revealed in the previous chapters, King Rishabhadev was the father of Bharat. And Rishabhadev had like 100 sons or something like that. And he was chosen by his father, Rishabhadev, who is actually mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam among the avatars. He's like a Shakti Avesh avatar of Krishna. So his life is described in the earlier chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam, and just preceding this description of Maharaj Bharat, who became later Jada Bharata, and is instructing here King Rahugana. So he was not an ordinary human being, but he was like a very highly exalted soul. And just to teach us, he went through this kind of lifetimes, giving us understanding also of this, that Haribol, Prabhu. So giving us understanding that if we don't live our life according to recommendations of Shastra, if we deviate, then we don't know the consequences. Like in his case, he was just at the time of his death, he was, when leaving his body as the previously had been the king of the entire earth. And that he became, when he had withdrawn from his kingdom and he was living in the forest, then there he became attached to that cute little creature, a deer, like somebody gets attached to a cat or a dog or some hamster running in the wheel. They become attached to these little pet animals, and we don't know to which body they end up. But this is what happened to, and this is just an example for everybody to understand that we should be not just whimsical and just attached to all kind of frivolous things of this world, but using our human life for spiritual upliftment And this is what Bharat Maharaja's life is actually teaching us also, to be careful. It's not like we become devotees and that's it. We just dress as devotees, but nothing happens inside. So if we are very fortunate, we can also gradually perfect our life and purify our consciousness and obtain higher levels in bhakti by following the example of our acharyas, our own guru, according to our ability. Means, for example, in the case of my guru, for example, he's Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. He's so highly exalted. I can pray only that I can get some particles of his dust from his lotus feet in this lifetime, and by following his instructions and serving him still, and also under guidance of these senior, more highly advanced Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis like Shyamara and Didi and these other very highly advanced devotees in Srila Gurudev's Sangha. So it's amazing to see that King Rahugana actually realized, suddenly hearing, we, like Srila Prabhupada stated, that if somebody is just quiet inside the room and not speaking anything, it's very difficult to understand their position. But once they open their mouth, one begins to realize who they are, what they are. He said even, even a madman can just be present in the room, but once he opens his mouth, then everybody figures out what is his condition. That's what Srila Prabhupada said, and it's true, So when a self-realized soul is speaking, like here in the case of Jad Bharat, Maharaj Rahugana, who was thinking that he was so great, he realized that he's just a very small and illusioned living being, and he's needing some more enlightenment from the great personality, Jad Bharata. And this also, we have to also in our life as devotees, we should learn humility. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Trinada Pisunitsena. So that's the main quality for a devotee, to develop humility. And he also, this great king, he learned some humility by realizing the glories of Jada Bharata. We don't know anybody's level. Only Guru can see the level of what we are in. So we have to be very respectful to everybody. That's very beneficial for us. So we don't make any offenses. And in this way, when we don't make offenses, then we have a chance to develop in our bhakti. Otherwise, again, Maya will cover us more. Even though we have practiced so much sadhana, if we make offenses, we get again covered over. Can be even if we make serious offense to some highly exalted soul, then it can be some severe, like a sinful reaction actually, papa karma. So one has to just be so humble, and then so many blessings can come by being in the association of devotees and doing our practices, just like Guru, Sadhu and Shastra are teaching us. So in the second verse, it's Jvara mayartasya yatha gadam sat nigadhadagdhasya yatha himam bha kudehamana hi vidashta trishte brahman vatsaste mritam oshadham me. Translation: O best of the Brahmanas, my body is filled with dirty things and my vision has been bitten by the serpent of pride. Due to my material conceptions, I am diseased. Your nectarian instructions are the proper medicine for one suffering from such a fever, and they are cooling waters for one scorched by the heat. Purport: the conditioned soul has a body full of dirty things, bones, blood, urine, stool, and so forth. Nonetheless, the most intelligent men in this material world think they are these combinations of blood, bone, urine, and stool. If this is so, why can't other intelligent men be made with these ingredients, which are so readily available? The entire world is going on under the bodily conception and creating a hellish condition unfit for any gentleman's living. The instructions given to King Rahugana by Jada Bharat are very valuable. they are like the medicine that can save one from a snake bite. The Vedic instructions are like nectar and cool water for one suffering from scorching heat. So this is again giving an understanding. The king realized that he is not the body; he is something separate. So we actually completely beyond this physical body. It's gonna die any moment, and then its real nature will be revealed when our soul will depart. Our eternal soul departs the body, and then whether it's gonna be put underground or in some coffin or or cremated. Like in our tradition, we don't accept anything else than cremation, so that the soul can go without any attachment to the next birth. Or in the case of very highly exalted souls, like who are on the platform of highly exalted consciousness, they no need to even burn their body because they are anyway transcendental to it. So there's for our acharyas, there's always a samadhi for them, because they are already transcendentally situated and they are only present there in their samadhi to bless us. So no need for cremation in their case. But otherwise, the entire human society, whichever country we go, everybody is just on bodily conception of life. They're thinking they are the body. They're convinced about the body. They're thinking, when they're looking in the mirror, they think that's me. And we also have identification with the body, but we at least theoretically we know that we are the soul. Yeah. So and gradually, there's different levels of realizing that too. There's different levels. So and highest level is like being actually like mukta, jivan mukta. They are that on that level one is like liberated already in this lifetime in this body, because completely realizing one's being separate from the physical temporary body and beginning to realize the true spiritual nature of one's self by getting transcendental experiences, which are available through bhakti yoga. All these other processes there are inferior, and we get very, very dim experiences of spiritual reality. But bhakti yoga is the most powerful process for self-realization, and then that's why we have to very sincerely follow this process, and we will begin to realize more and more of what our teachings are about. If we hear about the pastimes of Krishna, it's only first a story, but then gradually by practicing bhakti yoga or the holy name itself, we're just chanting the mantra, but what that mantra really is, we begin to realize it by practice and by mercy of Guru and Krishna. So, and by hearing from a realized soul, like you have a chance to hear from Shyamarani Didi here. So that's really highly fortunate, I'd say, and very important to bring people here. Invite them in different ways, giving these written books and flyers, prasadam, to anybody. There's all kind of persons, who might be fortunate simply by getting invitation card or a book or some prasadam. They can just suddenly begin to take shelter of this path and change their life, actually. Because otherwise we will remain in this samsara chakra, in this cycle of birth and death, lifetime after lifetime. Whereas the Hare Krishna, welcome. Sit down, please. And Srila Prabhupada is saying here that the spiritual instructions are like a medicine that can save one from a snake bite. What kind of snake bite is referred here? Snake bite of ignorance. So, getting spiritual instructions, because we're getting this material information, material knowledge so much. We're getting material knowledge from the society, but it will not awaken our soul. It's like snake bite is making one go into coma or maybe just dying, And that's what happens to our soul. The soul is completely covered over by getting all this material knowledge, but when we're hearing with chanting the holy names of Krishna and with doing sadhana, then gradually we become delivered from, and by hearing Harikatha, all this, power of that is to kind of like a medicine, acting like medicine and making our soul awaken to its, closer to its original nature, and we can begin to taste the nectar of spiritual life. Vedic instructions are like nectar and cool water for one suffering from scorching heat. And what is that scorching heat? Maya and this material existence. In the text 3, it's spoken like this by Maharaj Rahugana to Jad Bharat. Tasmad bhavantam mama sangsayarthang prakshyami paschad adhuna subodham adhyatma yoga krathitam tavoktam akyahi kautu halacchetasome. Translation: whatever doubts I have about a particular subject matter, I shall ask you about later. For the time being, these mysterious yoga instructions you have given me for self-realization appear very difficult to understand. Please repeat them in a simple way so that I can understand them. My mind is very inquisitive and I want to understand this clearly. Purport. The Vedic literature instructs, Tasmad gurum prapadyeta yigyasu shreya uttamam. An intelligent man must be very inquisitive to know the transcendental science deeply. Therefore, one must approach a guru, a spiritual master. Although Jad Bharata explained everything to Maharaj Rahugana, it appears that his intelligence was not perfect enough to understand clearly. He therefore requested a further explanation, stated in Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, verse 34. Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. The student must approach a spiritual master and surrender unto him fully, means pranipatena. He must also question him in order to understand his instructions. Pariprashnena. One should not only surrender to the spiritual master, but also render loving service unto him, sevaya, so that the spiritual master will be pleased with the student and explain the transcendental subject matter more clearly. A challenging spirit before the spiritual master should be avoided if one is at all interested in learning the Vedic instructions in depth. So this is also interesting to see that the king is admitting, King Rahugana is admitting to Jad Bharata that he was speaking things that just went too high above his head. He couldn't grasp the point. So he had to get some further instructions, and then this chapter, Jad Bharata will illuminate Maharaj Rahugana a little bit more, with some more, little bit kind of like more easily understandable way, so that he will become liberated from all kind of illusory concepts of his existence and this entire material world. So. Okay, so we can start to complete it here?
I think so.
Yeah, all right. Jai Srila Gurudev ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Gauranitai ki jai, Shri Radharaman Bihari Jiv ki jai, Shyamarani Didi ki jai, Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam Mahapurana ki jai. Dandavat pranams to all of you. Haribol. Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Radharaman Bihari Jiv ki jai.